world leaders have gathered in New York for the United Nations General Assembly. This year, the gathering is being held amid rising tensions in the Middle East, growing calls for action on the climate crisis and the ongoing trade war between the US and China. In his opening speech, Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned of the growing divisions across the globe, while US President Donald Trump delivered a stinging rebuke against globalism, saying the future instead belonged to patriots. He's also accused Iran of fueling wars in Yemen and Syria and once again slammed Beijing's trade practices.
Not only has China declined to adopt promised reforms, it has embraced an economic model dependent on massive market barriers, heavy state subsidies, currency manipulation, product dumping, forced technology transfers, and the theft of intellectual property, and also trade secrets on a grand scale.
Let's get more on this now with Frank Ucciardo, who joins us from New York. Hi, Frank. Donald Trump's speech, as we know, was wide-ranging, but let's start with his comments about the ongoing US-China trade war. He really doubled down on his attacks on China's trade practices, didn't he?
Yes, he certainly did, talking about their currency manipulation, market manipulation, and the high barriers to trade. He complained about China when they joined the World Trade Organization back in early 2001, that almost 60,000, even more than 60,000 factory jobs disappeared from the United States. He said since he implemented those stringent sanctions on China, the tariffs on China, that those jobs have started to come back. The supply chains have started to come back to the United States. And one of the more interesting things he pointed out was a story that was told to him by the CEO of Micron Technologies. Apparently, the CEO of Micron Technologies told him that the Chinese had stolen the designs for a Micron chip, a memory chip. So he got into the intellectual property end of it that way. He also offered an olive branch to China's leaders, saying, you know, he is a great leader, but a lot will depend on how he responds to what's going on right now.
We also know that tensions between the US and Iran have ratcheted up after the recent attacks on Saudi oil facilities. What did Donald Trump have to say about Tehran and the sanctions that his administration has imposed on the country?
One of the things he said was that the recent escalation of violence in the Gulf region was Iran's attempt to free itself from sanctions. He said that Iran is a repressive regime that is squandering the country's oil wealth in its quest to get nuclear weapons. And he says we're going to keep continuing to implement more severe economic sanctions. He announced that the highest level of economic sanctions had been imposed on Iran's central bank and Iran's wealth fund. He says as long as Iran remains a menacing state to the region, these sanctions will be in place. And this is what we pretty much expected from Donald Trump this week, a no-holds-barred approach to Iran. There were rumors floating around within the last 2 weeks that somehow the U.S. delegation was going to meet with Iranian representatives here. Minister Zarif from Iran told us yesterday that no way that this was going to happen. He said, why should we negotiate with Donald Trump? He may not be reelected, and the next person that becomes president of the U.S. may take back any deal that is negotiated right now.
Now, Donald Trump also took aim at social media companies in his speech before the General Assembly, which took some people by surprise. Why are social media companies in his line of fire?
Well, you know, did that really, as you stated there, it really took people by surprise. They had no idea that was coming. But what he did say was that social media companies have too much power. He said their social media companies are hiding, you know, in secret. They operate in secret, and they also weaken democracies, and that's what he was after. I think we have to put this into social media context. Donald Trump's Twitter account is 67.4 million followers, and he's looking to kind of rein in social media companies and put them on notice, yet he seems to be the one that is benefiting the most with social media these days.
That's right, perhaps biting the hand that feeds. Frank Ucciardo in New York, thanks so much for that update.